both could go on and put our faith.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Live in the Studio. Today we are here with the duo Woodland. How are you guys?
Doing good.
Doing well.
This is Melissa and Jason. I don't remember last names quite yet because we've met, I've met you once before this. I haven't met you until today, but
Melissa
it's very nice
Harper,
to meet you both.
if you want a last
Yeah,
name.
I'm Jason Herring.
Yeah. And obviously Shay and I.
Yep.
Say
Hello.
How are you guys?
We're doing good.
Yeah.
I'm excited to be here.
You
Thank
found
for
us.
inviting us.
We found
Took you a minute.
Yeah.
I was standing out on the road in the middle of a field looking for you.
I was hoping that was a good sign. I was like, there's a man outside. I think there's
He was like, "Where are you?" I said, "I don't know. I just passed a dead turtle. It was on the right hand side, and that's all I know. I'm out in the sticks." So,
I pictured you out there like trying to resuscitate this thing.
yeah.
Yeah, he
Just
told me.
dead.
Did you
Dead
actually
on
move
arrival.
it? Or
I
did you-
moved him.
Yeah.
He was still moving, but he wasn't doing too
He
good.
wasn't doing too hot.
Didn't
I
look
think
good.
I passed the same turtle.
Oh man, it might have been you.
But he was just curled up, and then he wouldn't. I was like dead center. I didn't hit him.
Oh well, I went to pick him up, and he looked up at me and he said, "Billy."
the last I told you
That
who
was
did
his
it.
last words.
Why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourself? Obviously, you guys have been playing together for a good bit, and tell us about Woodland and how it got started, and kind of about your background in music.
So, a good friend of mine, I was at a group with him where he would work. We would get together and we would hang out and have breakfast and this kind of thing. And he told me several times, he kept mentioning his friend, our mutual friend, Matt Harper. This is Clay Neal, a good friend of mine I'm talking about. And he would say, "Man, Matt's fiance, man, she's a good singer. You need to meet her. She's in Boston now, but they're engaged, and if she ever comes back in town, y'all might need to get together." And y'all being musicians, you hear that all the time.
Yeah.
You know, so and so can sing.
Yeah.
So and so's got a CD out. So and so's got a, you know what CDs are, the little plastic
I do.
things.
Yeah, that was yes. I
We
did.
actually talked about
We
that.
did, we did.
CDs are the best, by the way. So, but yeah, he was saying that she's got a CD out, and I was like, man, whatever. So then when I met her, or actually he gave me the CD first. That's what it was. And then when I played it, I was like, holy cow, man, she's actually really good. So she came into town, and we got together, another friend of mine, and we did a Christmas party where we had like 2 shows and played some Christmas music, and that was our first official. It wasn't really a Woodland gig; it was the 3 of us, and then we hit it off, and then pretty much have been playing ever since. So
Nice.
that was what 2010.
I think it was 2010.
That's what I think too. Yeah, Christmas 2010.
It was,
Nice.
it was a little while ago now.
So what was the CD you gave him, or that you were given? What was that?
So I recorded. It was called the Diorama EP, but it was 6 songs that I had written mostly when I was studying on Martha's Vineyard. But yeah, so I had a chance to record them at Full Sail down in Orlando.
Okay. Awesome.
And so I guess
Yeah,
it
she was
landed in
Melissa
your hands.
Myers then. On
Melissa
the,
Myers.
on the album.
That's
yeah.
right.
Okay. Nice. Yeah, I had so like the first band I ever joined, I was like 15, 16 years old, and they were all older than me. And one of them was actually a teacher at Full Sail for
Oh,
a couple
really?
of years. Yeah, he taught like electronics. I used to bring him my amp right there. Actually, every time it broke, he would patch it all back together for me, which was actually a great friend to have as a 16-year-old who was not being light on gear.
Yeah,
I'd turn it all the way up all the time, kind of thing. It's around that age for me, but well, so you guys, we were even talking about it a little bit. What's it been like as a duo? I mean, you guys have been playing together 10 plus years now?
12.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for the math.
Yeah, I was doing the subtraction.
So
in my
like
head.
12 years now.
Yeah.
What's kind of the process been like? Even we were talking a little bit earlier just about are there specific gigs you felt like were didn't work or whatever? What have been some of the kind of things you've learned as you've done it for so many years?
Well, she and I are very different in personality, but we work together, I think, very well. And for the most part, it's a shoot her a text, hey, check out this song. Or I'll shoot her an email with a little demo recorded on my cell phone or something. And then she'll listen to it and, yeah, I like this one. This is good. Definitely up for it. She'll do the same to me. Yeah, I like it. I ain't really feeling it or whatever. Or we'll try it. And if it doesn't go over well in front of a crowd, we just never do it again. But
Stays there.
yeah, we both love harmony. So that
Yes.
works out good. So whoever takes the harmony is just as happy to take that as taking lead. And she's got her own sound and I've got my own sound, and it's not anything we ever tried to say, hey, let's try to sound like this, or let's try to sound like this group or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just naturally however she sounds with me or I sound with her.
Yeah.
Is how it turns out. And we both pretty much always play acoustic. There's a couple of gigs where you played keys and
That was a long time ago.
yeah.
And Jason plays. He has a whole suitcase that he sets up as a
Yeah, I
kick
think I've
drum.
seen
Have you
I've seen a
this?
video of it, I think. Yeah.
So Jason's sort of he could be a one-man band because he's playing guitar and his feet are going at the
You
same
think
time.
you could do it all at once?
One-man band?
I can do the harmonica and I can do the three.
You seen the people that have like the whole contraption at their feet that has like the hi-hat and the snare?
The
and
only
everything?
reason I can't do that is I'm entirely too lazy to create it. I can't imagine how they sit down and come up with that
It's
stuff.
a workshop project. is
Oh
what
my
that
gosh.
is.
Like engineering.
I never want to have to.
Well, how would you
trial
guys
and error.
describe your sound? Because we've actually never heard the both of you together other than like a clip or two.
I mean, I would say we're like a folk americana duo. We do a few originals and we do a lot of covers too. But I think like one thing that's been really interesting about playing with Jason is it's like we each write songs, we each love to do lead and harmony. It sort of feels like you're a much better guitar player than me.
No.
But
you say.
it's been really, I feel like it's been a good jive between us because it just feels like, I don't know, it feels like we're equals just coming together and we love harmony and we love to play and there's not like jockeying. You know how that can happen
Yeah.
sometimes?
Well, I know at least between guitar players when you're first joining bands, there's a lot of little bit like who's lead and who's rhythm. You know, especially in like high school age, you're like trying to sort all that kind of stuff out for the first time. But
Well, one of the best things, and we've never really even talked about this, but I sure don't mean to say this like you can have an ego by saying, I don't have an ego. I'm humble. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think either one of us has an ego in the group. It's
Yeah.
like that's why it does seem to work because, like I was saying earlier, I'm super happy to sing harmony. Matter of fact, it's awesome to sing harmony with her. You know, it's pretty cool. And you can feel that. And it's just like y'all know, sometimes when you hit that note and you feel it, it's like, oh, that's it right there. And that's always really cool to experience that.
I mean, I think
Harmonies didn't come naturally for us. Actually, not you playing behind me
are
clash
difficult.
a little bit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so like if he's comfortable singing lead, I'm either in the stratosphere or it's low enough that I'm like kind of blending with him a little too much. And then if I'm comfortable, it's the same thing, vice versa. So we've had to work on that quite a bit.
It took a while to figure out like how do we actually blend well.
Yeah.
And,
Well,
like,
for a while, I'd come in on a harmony and I'd completely throw you off because I'm just loud.
That was because I was learning. Like
And
for
he was
years, it
learning.
was just ability to keep the pitch while other stuff was going on was difficult for me.
It was never bad enough that anyone would notice like in the moment at a gig like or anything, but we'd get after and we were dating,
watch
so
it
we'd
back.
argue about it.
Yeah,
At the end, he's like, I need you to not do that ever again. And I'm like, boy.
That's funny.
I remember like honestly we realized I don't know somewhere in starting to record and we would put out songs and we would start sitting there and it wouldn't, and I think that, like I said, I already told you that's like been a super helpful environment for me. Once I started that, it's way less pressure for me for whatever reason. I don't get nervous in the studio, whereas live I like really don't do very well in terms of stress. And so like I'll sit there and I'll try again and I'm not bothered to try again and again and again and again. I'll look at like songs I've done with other people where they'll do something that's like a little harder than I'm currently able to do, and I mean I'll sit there and do 80 to 100 takes trying to get like, and I kind of don't realize it until I'm done, like how much or how long I've been there. I just kind of go into that mode, and I think that
I
really
realize it.
that really helped, I think, in terms of understanding like what does work well for us. Unison actually has been something that on records we've put into songs and we're like, okay, that actually sounds, it's kind of a unique thing that sounds good with both of our voices.
Yeah.
And then the harmonies tend to fit a little bit better in some of our verses. And when one, basically like she said, because by the time one of us is up in the very top of our range, the harmony is pretty not there for either one of us. It's a tougher thing.
Yep.
But
The worst part is when I interrupted you.
No,
So
go ahead.
You go ahead. No, you go.
I'm about to ask
you're
another
gonna check.
question. So
The worst part is, and we obviously, I mean, fortunately haven't really done this a lot, but it definitely happens, is when one person like cracks or says something and it makes you want to laugh in the middle of the
you have
song.
a favorite
But we
one
do
of
have
these?
things.
do you have a favorite one of those?
No, we definitely try to mess each other.
Well, like there's a song that I wrote that we do mouth trumpets
Okay.
in the middle, And no, I've heard him do this so many times, but still, half of the time I'm like, I cannot keep a straight pace.
Yeah, it's such fun.
And if I'm starting
I
to
do
do
that all the time.
okay,
That's why
you'll
he's
dig
looking
in
at me.
and put more like
gonna do it?
trumpety
No,
sounds.
I'm not gonna
Are
do
you
it
gonna
on the
demo your
podcast.
skills? Her dad was a saxophone
My
major.
dad was saxophone.
And so she
I
grew
mouth
up,
trumpet all
she
the time.
started doing like little trumpet like runs.
Y'all
Okay.
should do a duet, a mouth trumpet.
No, you. That's good.
It's
Man.
really good.
Yeah.
That's really
She'll
good.
do them like randomly walking around the house and
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I can't do it at all. But
That's a good mouth trumpet.
No, I was just gonna ask like each of you individually, like what got you started in music, like
You go.
way back when.
Yeah. So when I grew up in church, so I grew up with a hymnal in my hand ever since I was very young. But in high school, I got tied up with a really great vocal coach. And my dad is an engineer, and I love him. But, you know, he's a very practical guy. And she was coaching me at the time, and she's like, you should really pursue this. You love music. You should go to college and learn music, which sounded pretty dreamy. So I was like, well, I'll give this a shot. And Dad didn't try to stop me. So I was like, okay. So I went to a really small school in Tennessee and studied. It was a vocal performance major when I started, which was all classical. And I was like, ooh, I don't love this. And it makes me really nervous. I really more like, contemporary stuff. But it was a great foundation. So I was there learning classical music. And while I was, I think in my sophomore year, they started a new major, which was, I think they called it a contemporary music major. But it involved going to Martha's Vineyard for a semester. And it was all hands-on. So you were writing a song every week. You were practicing with fellow classmates. It was 30 kids. So it was like this
wow.
tiny
it's
little
tiny class.
on an island. I didn't have a car, so it was just there, That's probably as artistic as I ever got in my whole life. But it was good because we were forced to produce.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot. And then coming out of that, there were several kids that had been at the school that were interested in moving to Boston. And I also got kind of tied up with a band that it was I think she was called the resident director. And then one of my other classmates, the three of us became a band up in Boston called Gretel. And
Let me throw something in there.
Okay,
don't
yeah.
forget where you are.
Okay,
'Cause I'm
Gretel.
going to interrupt you, but I have to say this. My brother followed Gretel back when MySpace was big.
Oh,
And
really?
this was before I had any idea who she was. I didn't know anything about her.
Wow.
I just knew after, like I told the story earlier, and then that she was in a band called Gretel. And when I mentioned it, I'm going to be singing with this girl named Melissa Harper or Melissa Myers at the time. My brother was like, what was the band name she played? Gretel. He's like, man, I love Gretel. That's awesome.
Wow,
so
that's
it was
awesome.
just bizarre. And where was it? Where was Gretel from or out of?
Well, I mean, we formed coming out of the Martha's Vineyard, and then we all lived in the same house. So there were 9 people
Oh, that's
in
cool.
one house.
Yeah.
Most
So
of the
he
musicians.
thought I was like with
A little
a star.
chaotic.
Yeah, he was impressed
It
with
actually worked. You would think
Yeah.
it would be a nightmare, but it actually worked out really well.
When everybody in the house was a musician.
Or a visual artist.
Okay.
It was
It's
a very
kinda-
artsy house.
It's kind of cool.
It was. It was actually a really cool experience living there in this I think it was like an old Victorian.
Not forever, but a cool season. Sounds
Yes,
like, yeah.
2 years. And I was like, I think I'd like to have my own room now.
Space.
A little space. But it was really cool. So we were all living in the same house doing music, and we, went on tour. It was in a minivan. It's nothing fancy.
Nice.
Tried to date the bass player. Like we got together, I think 3 days before we left on a 3-month tour. And we
Okay.
broke up one weekend. So that was the learning lesson.
Mid-tour?
It was like, 7 days. 7 days into a 3-month tour. So we were stuck in a van together. That was
Was it a
fun.
bad breakup?
Great. Oh, well, I mean,
Should we talk about this?
Yeah. So that all was going on in Boston, and then it took a lot of time for us to kind of take root there because, I mean, there's some amazing music happening in Boston.
Mm.
I was out listening to live music probably 3 to 5 times a week, just taking it all in. But anyway, so that's kind of how it all got started. I'll turn it over to you.
Me just as a child, my dad liked music. My aunt that I spent a lot of time with, she had an enormous record collection, and she would let me.
So do you, from what I can see. You have
Yeah,
quite a
hers
few.
was like more. She's the one that got me into it totally.
Okay.
100%. But she would just go to flea markets, yard sales, Salvation Army, Goodwill, wherever, and it didn't matter what condition.
Just any of them.
Boxes full, and she would let me flip through them. And if I would recognize a title or I thought the album cover was cool, she would let me take them home. So I found bands like Creedence Clearwater that way. Brooke Benton was one. I know a lot of y'all too young. Y'all don't know who Brooke Benton is. It was
I had
just
you on the
certain
first
names
one.
that, for whatever reason, they stood out to me. I don't know why, but to this day, I'm still like really fond of those artists and listen to them. But Creedence Clearwater is one of my favorite bands ever, and John Fogerty. But so I love music, and I would listen to it at home. The Monkees was a big one. Remember the Monkees? You ever heard of them?
I think I've heard of them. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Born in '95.
yeah, there's one monkey left. There's only one. There's 4 of them. But one of the Monkees is founder of MTV, or like,
Okay.
at least co-founder. I think he may have actually
really?
founded it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I did not know
Yeah,
that.
Michael Nesmith. He just recently passed. But I digress. So my friend, I had gotten a drum set in 6th grade, and I could not really play that well at all. And I had them through 6th, 7th, and 8th, 9th. I started getting a little bit better, but still would not have said I was a drummer. And a friend of mine played in a band in high school, and his drummer moved, which he was good. He moved to Atlanta. So my friend in school came up like within that week and was like, "Hey, you got a drum set, don't you? Would you be interested in playing with the band?" And I was like, "Yeah." I was really shy, but I was like, "Absolutely!" And I had no business
Yeah.
trying to do that.
Fake
But I
it till you
learned.
make it.
Yeah. Oh, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah.
And he was literally one of my best friends. So I was comfortable being around him.
Yeah.
And through that, pretty much every door opened. I started doing harmony from behind the drum set. And then I'd step up every now and then and lead a song from the drum set or whatever. And it just built my confidence. And then I started getting into music that way. So then I remember, you were talking about earlier having stage fright. I remember the first time I went out by myself solo with an acoustic guitar, horrified. I mean, I literally thought, and I'm not kidding, I thought I was going to pass out. And I was back, there was a stage, and I was backstage doing jumping jacks.
Really?
Because I was like, I feel like I'm going to pass out.
How old were you?
Probably 16.
Yeah.
Maybe. And when it was curtain thing, when the curtains opened and I saw the crowd, it was a big crowd too. Totally went away.
Yeah.
I was like, this is it. This is awesome. And I didn't say that. I'm thinking to myself, nerves went away.
Yeah.
At least it felt like they did. I don't know if they really did, but
Yeah.
I don't know where I was mentally. But I felt like I didn't have that nervous feeling anymore.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of realized, this is pretty cool.
I started learning. I had a friend who asked me if I would play a talent show. I was like 13 or 14 years old, and not quite the same to you, but I thought I had a guitar, and I was like, I'll probably never be good enough to do it, but sure, I'll give it a shot. And then we probably got about like 2 weeks from it, and I didn't even
Chickened out.
I got good enough to play this song, and I was shocked. Like I really didn't think when I started, I was like. I just
What was
said
the
yes.
song?
It was a song called "Time and Confusion" by Amberlin.
Okay.
I'll show it to you later. There's a couple of riffs in there that they were harder than I should have been able to play. They're not like crazy or anything, but I was just shocked that I got within striking distance, and it just scared me. I was like, oh no. like when I said yes to this, I thought it was like literally like no chance. And we got like 2 weeks before, and I backed out. And I was like,
Oh, no.
yeah, I ended up.
Oh,
I was like,
no.
listen, I freaked at that
You
point.
made up for it later.
I was like 7th or 8th grade, I think, or something like that. And then I joined my first band like 15 or 16 years old.
You just cold turkey asked them if he could join.
They were actually leading at a church, and they didn't have a guitar player, which was really bizarre because they had a drummer, a keyboard player, a
Dulcimer.
vocalist, and a piano at the time is what was on stage.
Oh, is that what the...
And I was like, they are missing something, and I can clearly feel what's there. And so I walked up and asked them, and they were between 25 and 35, and they told me no. And then I started taking vocal lessons from one of them anyway, and she kind of heard me play like through the years, probably about a year after that, and eventually was like, hey, would you want to come to a practice or fill in at this or fill in at that? And I just kept saying yeah. And eventually once they got to realize like, okay, like he is a kid, but he actually really does want to do it, and like we'll take it seriously and stuff like that. I think it sort of smoothed it over, and I was in that band for 6 years.
I got pushed into doing everything I do now by other people because I was so painfully shy. I used to do I would wait till everyone was asleep, and then I'd sneak into my dad's studio. My dad's a musician. And I'd record after hours, and then no one would
And
ever
they're
hear them.
really good.
I'd
This
put
is
them
the
on a
problem.
flash drive.
They're insanely good.
Tuck them away. I was like, no one's ever gonna hear it, but I think it's fun. I'm just gonna do it. Or I'd go downstairs. My room was above the garage growing up, and so I'd just go down and belt show tunes in the garage late at night. No one could hear me. do that. And then eventually, like, my dad and my pastor and him, and they were kind of like, you kind of need to, like...
Well, your dad
For real?
showed one of your pastors a demo, and you were on the team.
And he signed me up for the
had
youth
any
band.
conversation about
wow.
it. Like,
You were
he
on
was
there.
just
Yeah.
like, listen
It's
to
like,
this.
see you Wednesday night for practice.
Yeah,
I was
that
like,
kind of thing.
okay.
See, when I was younger, I was terrified
Yeah.
to let anybody hear me. I wouldn't let anybody hear me sing.
Yeah.
And I remember going, I would I had a record player, and I would it was the Beatles. It was the songs, it had Paperback Writer on it. It had Michelle. And I would sing along to it, and I would record myself on a cassette player and then play back. And whatever parts I didn't sing right, I was like, okay, I got to fix that part. I felt like I did it 100 times. I'd go back and do it. And then something kept bugging me. I was like, I don't like the way my voice sounds. And I noticed I was trying to impersonate them. So I was like, I don't need to sound like Paul McCartney. I need to sound like me. So I just started singing it with my own voice.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I like my own voice, but it made me feel more comfortable. Like I wasn't.
For me, that was like songwriting for me. I pretty much as soon as I started to sing, I started to write. And I had always kind of, I wrote poetry when I was a kid, like younger kid, like 6th, 7th grade. And so when I started singing, I just started trying to write right away. And it was to the point where for years I was like writing stuff, and from playing guitar, I had a good knack for writing melodies, but I couldn't sing any of them. So like I would like sing like 75% of the song, and then like you'd hit like the part where I wanted to go like either higher or somewhere else or something I couldn't hit, and I would just remember what it was supposed to be and then kind of like halfway recreate it, and I never actually could do it, or I'd have to sing it an octave down or kind of fudge or fumble whatever I had written, but I knew what I wanted it to be. And then it was just years of trying to actually be able to do what I had in my head, and eventually
He still does that to me this day. I'll be in the booth recording something, and he's like, can you do like the and he'll loosely say it, and I'm like, can you do it? He's like, no, absolutely not.
No, but she can.
I can
Like,
hear
I
it.
know it. Yeah.
And I think you can do it if you just try it a couple times. And I'm like,
Yeah, and that and
not fair.
starting to be on albums and like meeting other musicians, and they'd say, hey, do you want to sing this song together or do this or whatever, and they're just like way better than I was, and the challenge of like not sucking in comparison on a record, that was something that pushed me huge, where I was like, okay, they did this run, I cannot follow it up with nothing. I have to do something that makes it, that at least doesn't fall flat. And so like an hour into trying later, I'm like, I think this is making me get better after maybe, I don't know. We did there's a little record on the wall that you'll see pictures of a couple different people on, and I sang with maybe 1, 2, 3, 4 of them on different songs, and all of them are just stellar
Phenomenal.
singers. They're all insane, and I was the only guy. So I ended up on every track, and that is that was a record that pushed me a lot. So projects and like certain things are definitely something that helped me grow too. But we were talking a little bit about it earlier, and I had a question, which was like best and worst experience playing a gig. You guys have one?
You gonna start with worst?
Yeah.
Worst is the better
always the
of
fun
these
one.
two
Yeah,
questions.
the worst.
I'm sure I've had some doozies solo
I have
or with
to.
other bands, and I'm sure you have. But as far as us together, we've been super lucky, like to not have really anything bad happen. But we did have one particular gig. It was a couple years ago,
Yeah.
and it was a heckler, and he was drunk. And as I was setting up sound, he was already there. And
Already drunk or just there?
I don't know. we won't use the term that you would probably use to refer to this guy, but let's just say he was a jerk. Just put it that way.
Okay.
That's a nice word. We
Yeah.
say jerk's a real good word for it.
Okay.
And you could tell. You could hear him speaking,
Yeah.
talking to everybody around him, and the way he spoke to people and spoke down to people, I was like, oh man, I hope he don't hang around, because we hadn't started yet. Like an hour before we started. And I won't say where we were, because I'll refer to the manager of this particular place, and I don't want to put him on the spot.
Yeah, you're right.
But he was beside me. And when I heard this guy, my back's turned, and I heard him, and I heard that guy, and he used some profanity. I won't obviously repeat. But I did hear him say, oh, great. I hate this guy. And I was like, yeah, I can tell, man, 'cause I can just hear him. This guy ain't cool at all. So we set up, and we get ready to do our thing, and we're playing, I don't know, not long, 15, 20 minutes. And he's talking to this group and saying this out of the way stuff to this people and walking around kind of, it was outdoors. And then he keeps coming up to us, and we're like folky Americana singer-songwriter, some covers like we mentioned. I love country music. I hate new country music. I won't listen to it. I can't stand it. And I'm not one of those guys that just hates it because it's not country. I don't care what it is. I just don't like the sound of it. I just whatever you want to call it. But the old country, which a lot of people don't like, I imagine you probably hate it because you said
I'd probably more than I wouldn't. I really just probably haven't heard it.
I've just never heard it.
Yeah,
I love the old.
I probably wouldn't mind
60s,
it.
70s, 80s stuff.
I tend to listen to whatever comes on a lot of the time, just because, especially if I haven't heard it.
Yeah,
I'll be like, oh, that's different.
We don't really like new country either.
Yeah, but see, he kept
there's a couple
hollering
songs
out
here and there.
country, but it was stuff I love. But it's not stuff we do.
Yeah,
and it was annoying because I was like, this is not the Jason show. I'm not just going to break out into Merle Haggard or Hank Williams Jr. or whoever you keep shouting out, and you just kept on, and he was big. He was like a, pretty.
Yeah.
How many years ago was this? This sounds an awful lot like the same guy we were talking about earlier, doesn't it?
Did he also ask to sing in the microphone?
No.
This guy.
No.
You remember that?
And complimenting every woman that was nearby, like very uncomfortable. It was he was that guy, and so then he comes up and he's big and he's like, do some Merle or do some Hank Williams or whoever, Willie Nelson or whatever, and then. And I'm not. I hate confrontation. Oh, I hate like the worst. I'll do anything in the world to avoid confrontation. But at the same time, excuse me. How are you going to get the guy to go away? Like, what do you do?
You got to do something.
So, I don't know. I said, who you going to hear? Hank Jr. or Hank Sr.? Which one? Hank Sr. So I did a Hank Sr. song. He stayed right in front, didn't he? The whole time we played. Yeah, because you complimented me. You said you handled that guy very well, and I was like, man, I was about to put the smote on him. But so I did Your Cheating Heart, and he stayed in front of them, which is, you gotta look that one up. It's an old classic country song, and he stayed kind of real close by, and then he's like, that was pretty good, and he walked off, and I didn't see him the rest of the night. And I was so glad. But somebody told us later on that he had told them at their table they would never make it in Clover. So I guess he's from Clover. So if you're out there. I'm sorry to be talking trash about you, but you made us very uncomfortable for about 20 minutes. Yeah, I was like, this guy's gonna squash me, man, because he was a big dude.
We had a really similar experience.
Yeah, we'll have to ask you. I'll ask you after if it's the same place.
Where it was at. But we literally were like playing a gig, and at the time, I'm trying to remember what we were playing as far as our set goes. Our stuff as a duo, we were playing like covers and like background music places and stuff.
We had like bar songs, but I wouldn't call them country. They were just kind of rock, like, alternative.
Like a little bluesy here and there, different things like that. A lot of covers, a couple originals.
If either of us had a southern accent, it'd probably come across country.
Which I do not.
Neither of us do.
I cannot even fake it. It's rude for me to try to fake it. It's that bad. Like, I can't make it happen. I cannot make it. I cannot do it at all. And he kept asking us for these different songs, none of which we knew. We were like, we don't know that one.
I hope it's the same guy.
And then he would ask us about another one. And Senior and Junior came up, so I'm pretty sure that was Hank. Right? Like it was really close. And I think we offered him up Wagon Wheel was the closest we could get.
He was like, no.
He didn't like that one.
No, he did not. We did it. And no. We did Tennessee Whiskey too. And those were the only...
I botched so bad.
Which are
that's
like...
a hard song to
for
sing.
it.
Yeah, they were...
Talking about runs.
They were... I don't think he was too happy with us. He
but
left. But
we
I don't
did
think
have
it was
your
because
dad
we did
there.
something that helped.
We had your dad there as a buffer, because your dad's kind of a bigger, scary... He can be kind of a scary guy, too. If you don't talk to him first. Once you talk to him,
2 seconds into the
not,
conversation, you're like, oh, this is a very nice person.
But yeah, he was kind of sitting there, like, and I was trying to, like, meld into the wall. I was like, this is awkward. Make this guy go away.
There was just nothing we could say. He just...
What do you say?
If you don't know the song... I mean, there are people, right? I mean, there are people that like will just Google whatever song they're asking and just play it.
Well, I think if the artist is like, hey, I'm taking requests.
I can't do that.
Let me know what song you want to hear. Like, that's okay. But like, I would never walk up to like some random act and just be like,
that's the thing. All these years been playing music. I'm
like, you know how many
musician,
songs
so I feel
are?
like that there's probably something there, right? Like,
it's like they feel like they're... they want to demand something, and like you're supposed to just like start doing whatever, like a jukebox or something.
Well, and they're drunk.
It's weird.
So there's that. You know, I mean, both, at least both those two. He for sure was not sober, and so I think that played a role.
Yeah.
And it was like most of the time when we've gotten requests outside of that, it's usually like one-off. Hey, do you know blah blah blah? And we'll say either yes or no. And they're like, if we say no, they're usually fine. They're usually like, oh, okay, sorry. And then they don't usually ask about any other songs.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wish they would give me more than one option. That's
I
tough.
feel terrible when we can't.
Yeah.
When I say what I just said earlier, I'm not saying I don't appreciate when somebody asks. That's great.
Yeah.
But it's like what you're talking about. They just keep on and keep on and keep on.
Just
It's
don't
like,
know
man,
any
that's
of
not
them.
what we
It's
do.
just kind of stuck.
Well, and some of the people, some other artists I know of our age have the opposite problem too, where they get asked for new stuff that like we don't like. They're like, do you know the song by I don't know JoJo Siwa or like some
I don't know who that is.
somebody who's under
You don't know who
21?
JoJo
You know,
Siwa
we're
is?
like,
I saw JoJo Siwa in concert.
did you?
Did you?
Took my dog.
On purpose? Okay.
Oh yeah, it was her first real concert.
I still don't know who it is.
Let me tell
I'm
you.
gonna come back like a boomerang.
Yes.
Does that ring a bell?
I shouldn't talk trash about
Okay.
JoJo because I like JoJo Siwa and the songs are catchy and it ain't my kind of music, but I can
They
get
are.
into
It's
it.
pop. It's
But I'm gonna tell you, she's got the easiest job on the planet because I watched and there's so much lip syncing and it's expected. She's not like an actual, you know, I mean, she's a good singer. I'm not down in her,
No,
her
she's
ability.
like performer.
I'm just saying what she's doing is exactly what she's supposed to be doing. She's
Yeah.
entertaining kids and stuff, and I'm just thinking, man, to be
That
able to
actually
get up
seems
there,
like a hard job.
oh man, the music's just going and the kids are screaming and hollering. It's like that's got to be the greatest job on the planet.
Yeah, I'm sure being able to. The one that's always puzzled me, and it's kind of to your point, is like you start to think about it, you're like, man, how are they running around like that? And then they don't sound out of breath, you know?
Yeah.
Like I'm sure. I'm sure that there are people out there who can do that, but also a lot of it I think
Not
is
me.
a little less real than it comes across. I did see one where they were doing like they would sing it for real during the rehearsal, and the rehearsal would get recorded, and then they would play back parts of the rehearsal for certain songs that were like they were wanting to move around a lot. So it really did sound live because it was a live performance for basically like an hour or two before, and then they would play it back while they were doing all sorts of whatever. But
This friend of mine ran sound. Again, I won't say any details because it's just not nice to do. But it was a place like a Coyote Joe's. You know, they have pretty good acts.
Yeah.
You know, not just some little hole in the wall. And it was a guy who was a very well known. He'd been around a long time, but he was a country singer. And his day had kind of come and gone, but he was there and he still could draw a crowd and stuff. And he said he noticed on the set list, some of the songs were like in different, I think he said different color font. I think that's what it was. And he thought maybe it's just the bigger hits, but he still didn't know why they specified those on the set list like that. Like the band didn't know, you know, what the hits were. But he said, so when he's singing, he said, he just really didn't have the notes anymore, which, you know, that happens with age. And he said, but man, when he got to those songs, he said it sounded amazing. It sounded so good. He said he finally realized he was lip syncing those songs. That was the ones where the sound guy knew to hit the track.
that's
what he was doing.
hilarious.
Yeah,
That's
I was like,
hilarious.
so Woodland's going to do that in our 2035 tour. Yeah, we'll do that.
Do you guys write a lot together?
No.
No.
Never have.
Never. So when you play like originals, are they just like either you've written them or you've written them and you figured out how to do them together, or?
I think I write songs when forced. I wish I was more of a writer, but it's not. It's hard. Writing is hard, and it's probably hard for everyone. You probably are more of a writer.
It goes back to the one-man band thing. I'm just too lazy. Like I should have 3 notebooks full of songs.
Yeah.
And it's
Writing's my favorite part. I'm a little bit of a junkie. I will write more than I
You should.
I literally do
You're
write.
doing the
I
right
write
thing.
more than I put out by like a lot. It's pretty bad.
I don't think you could catch up at this point with all the recording you would have to do to record every single
I
song.
think it said Springsteen
Well,
has
every
5
idea,
songs.
yeah.
To every song he's recorded, he's got 5 songs.
Yeah.
So you're doing the right thing.
I keep a book, and I have like 4 or 5, but they all have different ideas in them, and then I have one where the stuff that I actually like I could play through the whole thing. It's not even finished. It's just like I could play it from start to finish in a like semi-presentable format, and the rest of them are either just a hook here or a verse here or whatever. But that was the thing that I just had an affinity for. Right, like I said, right when I started, I was just trying to do it, and I think honestly that, and then at first it was like writing to avoid whatever was going on in life kind of thing for me, and then eventually it was like writing about my life, and that came with age, because when I was 16, 17, whatever was going on, I was like, this sucks, we'll just write about other stuff. And then when I like grew into adulthood, I was like, all right, I eventually just started processing it, you know, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's always been like one of my favorite things is writing. It's I think it's like a very unique way of being able to deal with stuff that it's just cool to channel it into something good, which is fun for me.
Everything we sing, he writes. I've written very little.
No, but what you do help me to write on comes out so good. It's like
I do okay with melody. I do not do good with lyrics. Lyrics are hard for me.
When we were younger, our styles were so far apart. I kind of grew up just listening to all like alternative and 90s, and her dad was like what 60s? What was
it
in
was
your house?
jazz, and it was like
She's a saxophone major, so
yeah,
like
maybe 80s and earlier.
So vocally, like what she would want to do with her voice was foreign to me. I had no ear for it. I could not write it unless she sat in the room with me and would start like just humming whatever, and then I would like remember a piece of it and sort of write words into that kind of an idea. And that was how I started to get a feel for like how to write, not really together, but how to write something that works for both of us. And that even took quite some time. But.
See, Melissa's patient because she probably has to get a text message like once a week. Hey, I've got a new song. Hey, I've started a new song. I promise. I bet I've got 75 audio messages on my phone of melodies that I genuinely like.
Yeah.
Like I tell her all the time, if I can finish this one, I think it could be a solid song. And I get a verse or a half of a chorus or something, or just the hook or whatever it is. I got the whole melody figured out. I can hum along, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
But you can't do an album full of.
Yeah.
I guess you could. But
have you guys put out a song?
we could do mouth trumpet. We could do an album of mouth trumpet. That's what
We'll
we
get
could.
you in there.
Okay.
We have not put it out.
That would be that would be really cool. I would love to see that as an accreditation somewhere. Mouth trumpet.
Oh, yeah.
Patterson. That would be awesome. So you guys haven't put out a song?
Mm-mm.
We've never recorded anything, have we?
Nope.
It
is in the works.
It's in the works.
Yeah, it's in the works. Now, is that going to be 2 years or like 2 weeks? But it's in the works.
We'll keep texting.
I'm going to say it's going to be. I'm going to say it's going to be soon. I'm going to say it right now.
Exciting because then people watching this will kind of get to it exists on the internet. Which would be cool. So
we don't currently exist.
When's our single?
We do exist.
I looked it up.
When's it gonna drop?
I looked up Woodland, and I was trying to find like just even if it was like older or anything.
It's on
Couldn't find
Facebook.
anything.
We don't exist.
Yeah.
Hey,
We don't exist.
I shouldn't even talk about this because it has absolutely nothing to do with what we're talking about, except the fact that I found a band on Instagram. I won't say their name. I just want to say this quickly. They got 37 followers. And it's one of the best albums I've heard in so long. It's such a good album. I play it all the time at work.
Really?
I might play it twice in a row. It's so good. And they got 37 followers, and there's no online presence anywhere. They're not on Facebook. As I messaged the guy, and I was like, what's up with that? We've been busy.
I want to kind of land the plane here a little bit, but one of the questions I want to ask is, what are you guys, we were kind of talking about already, but like in terms of for both of you as Woodland, what's some of the dreams, goals, hopes for the future stuff? What do you hope to do?
You want me to answer
You
that?
talk. I've talked a lot. You
We
talk.
laughed about this a little bit because I'm like, I'm not a big dreamer. That's not my nature. But I think, when I was younger, it's easier to dream because you have your whole life ahead of you. And I think we're at a point in our lives where we have kids, not together, but we have kids and families. And it's like, it is hard to try to figure out where to fit everything. And I think especially, I can speak as a mom, when your kids are really little, it's hard to keep a hold of the things that you really love because you're constantly giving to these other humans, which is great. And there's a season for that. And I think, we're kind of I'm getting to a season where I feel like my kids are getting older and we can put more into doing music. So I think recording is a big one for us. We've definitely played a lot of shows that are more background music kind of stuff. So I think it'd be interesting to push more into listening rooms, which shouldn't be that risky, but it does still feel risky to me. There's a certain comfort I feel of like, I'm in the background.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It could go off the rails and nobody's probably going to notice. And so I think, I don't know, I want to push outside of my comfort zone.
I want us to have a lot more originals. And I keep thinking,
Okay.
and I threaten myself every year. I was like, no more gigging the whole year. I'm not going to take a single gig of any type. And I'm just going to try to write. And I want 25 new songs. And then this to just revamp our set list and we be almost more of an original band. We hadn't really talked about that, but I think about it a lot. And just
Good that
never
we
do
came
it.
here.
Yeah.
So we can figure out what our goals and
This
dreams
is like the
are.
psychiatrist.
Happy to help. Happy to help. Yeah. Mine was when I turned, I realized like I was writing all these songs and not putting them out. And for years when I started, like my whole reason for starting to learn to record, for being where I am and all that, when it was that I wanted to be able to release the songs, but I was writing them before, like I said, before I could really sing them, before I could record them, before I could make them sound the way I wanted. And so it was just like years and years of trying to get to where I could do that. And then probably I'll be 27 in a week. And so like 25, I remember turning 25 and like I think I had maybe tracked like 3 or 4 records for other people and done an EP for us and a couple other things, and was just getting busy doing stuff for client work. And I remember going, okay, at this point, I'm pretty much at the point where I could do whatever I would like to do in terms of releasing songs. Now it's just about like, will I? And this kind of sounds like where you guys are, like the kids are getting a little older. You can you're like, okay, we're starting to get the time. Like I hit that moment where I'm like, I kind of have the time to do this. All I have to do is just like actually like go for it now. And so it was a goal to do 10 songs a year, but so that when I'm 35, looking back on it, I have 100 was like the little goal. I don't know if that'll happen, but that's my goal.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta ask the branded question.
Oh yeah, our branded question. Why don't you ask it? Because you brought it up.
Okay. We ask every guest this. If you've watched the podcast, you probably heard it. But
You've seen the clip.
You've seen the clip, probably. We just ask every guest, what does music mean to you?
I did see you ask that question to someone, and it really made me think. I was like, gosh, I feel like this probably sounds really cheesy, but when I think about my life, music almost feels like this old friend that's just been with me. Like, I think about being young in my parents' house, and they had a piano, and I'd turn on the one little light and just imagine myself on a grand stage, and just lose myself for hours. And I had a sister 2 years older than me, and we would just, for hours, just be by the piano. And I feel like music's been something that's walked with me, not really walked, but it's been with me every season of my life. And it's sort of this time capsule that we get to have. And I think the thing that I love most about music is the connectivity, like whether I'm connecting with a feeling that I have that maybe was buried, and now I'm listening to a song, or I'm singing the song, and now the emotion is right here, or the way that you can connect with other people through music. And for us, and I think that's also why I love harmony. It sort of has this, I don't know, it's like a transcendent thing that you're singing with someone else, and there's something it's hard to really put words to.
Yeah, you're like, harmony was an interesting one for me, because you start to realize, like, I don't really think about it. Like when I'm singing with her, when I hear something, they're like, can you add to this? And I just kind of, you're feeling a lot of your way into like, where's the right spot to be. It's a really unique thing to learn how to do. Totally challenging for me.
Yeah, I mean, harmony is like always my pursuit.
Yeah.
It's the thing that I love. And so I think the connection part, whether it's with my own self or with another person I'm making music with, or a community of people, that it's really hard to put into words, but it's something I cannot imagine my life without. You got anything?
And now I was just thinking, when you said, I've heard this, I'm probably going to butcher the saying, but it's basically like a lot of the music you listen to middle school, high school is like the soundtrack for your life. Yeah. And I used to be really bad about being kind of closed-minded about new stuff, and now I'm not at all. Now I'm constantly, like I mentioned,
listening to
Instagram.
people with 37 followers.
Yeah, oh man, it's like I come
That's
to my
pretty
wife
new.
every week. Hey, I found a new band. I found a new group, and it's super cool. But at the same time, it blows my mind how I can. REM is my favorite band of all time. I'm a big Springsteen fan, and Tom Petty, Traveling Wilburys, these kind of groups, and I can listen to that stuff now. And I would say it sounds as good as it did when I first heard it, but it's almost like it's better. It's like the more I grow and the more I learn and the more things I go through, the songs sometimes take on different meanings, or it's not always just the meaning from the first time I heard it. It blows my mind how good it still is. So I always call it my nursing home music. So if I'm ever in a nursing home, if I ever make it that far and I'm in a nursing home, there's going to be a handful of albums I'm going to have with me that I found when I was like, 10 years old, I'll still be listening to. And it's just amazing how that stuff, like you said, how it goes along with you. And it's like it's your friend,
Yeah, rock on.
I can see you walking in with your box of vinyl. How many vinyls do you
I'll
have?
take
Just
CDs.
curiosity. How many you got?
Oh, I really don't have a clue.
You know,
Yeah.
It's gotta
over a
be
certain number, like over
Oh my
1,000, over 2,000, over 500.
I would say at least 2,000 probably.
At least 2,000?
Because each shelf is
It's
like
just a big wall.
200 or 300.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah, it goes like this way all the way down across the floor and back up.
Nice.
Enough that when we met you and we asked your wife about it, she was like,
Yeah, she did. She did roll her eyes.
I have to admit though, because like I have some friends who are like genuine collectors.
Yeah.
And they're the guys who go out looking for these first pressings and they'll
Yeah,
pay
like really
$150,
condition
$200 for a
specific.
record.
Yeah.
I'm not that guy at
Yeah.
all. I want the music I want.
Yeah.
And it might be a whole row, and like, man, that's a bunch of records. They might all be Christmas albums. I love Christmas music. I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
So, but it is funny is the further along you go, the more you start getting picky about covers or about crackles, and you don't want that stuff. And
Or
so
just
I got
what
a
you're
good
paying,
little box.
what you're paying for it in the first place. I think is where it would come up for me, because it's like I wouldn't mind the condition, but you're charging this amount for that that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think probably the best kind of way to wrap up is to just ask you guys about the song you're playing today.
It was Road of Lies. It was written around 2010. It was a song I'd worked on for like years. I just couldn't finish it. It wasn't like I was like pouring my life into it. I just couldn't get it to where I liked it. It was one of those things. So I had like an early demo. So then when Woodland came along, it gave me a reason. I said, I need some more new material.
Yeah.
So it gave me a reason to really work on it. And then it probably pretty quickly became one of our favorites. It's several stories wrapped up into one, different people. It's not just about one specific thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's what Road of Lies is. It's part of it is a true story that the very first line, driving home, and I literally fell asleep, which is terrible, but I did. And it was for a couple of seconds, and I remember waking up, and I was in the other lane, And the only thing is not accurate is the song says for a minute or two.
Yeah.
It wasn't. It was like a couple
two.
seconds.
Yeah,
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 a second or two didn't sound as good in the
you
song.
gotta
Yeah.
dramatize it a
But-
little bit.
Yeah, it was probably about 10 seconds. But when I woke up, I was like, I was in the other lane. Like nobody was coming, thankfully, and I swerved back over. And that was what inspired it, was that one scene there.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for coming on the
Yeah,
show.
thank you.
It's very great to
Thank
meet
you
you.
for
and
having
very
us.
great to have you in. I think we're gonna wrap here, and
Usually we ask you to shout out your socials, but it doesn't sound like you guys have very
yeah,
much.
where can
But
people
can
follow
people
you
find
at?
you anywhere?
Where can
Let's
we
shout out
where can we point
our
people
Woodland
to?
Instagram, because we need to create one, and that'll make us create
Okay.
one.
Yeah. Come on.
We'll do a post before we leave here tonight, maybe.
Yeah, we'll tag.
We
Yeah.
won't make you guys do it.
Whatever-
We'll take it outside the building.
Okay. Whatever it ends up being,
Okay.
we'll tag it.
It will
Would it be
be
fair? I'm
written-
sure not trying to be. I'm sorry, I interrupted
No,
you.
you're good.
What'd you say?
No.
Would it be fair? I'm not trying to be self-serving, because my page is not anything. Like, it's not like I'm trying to promote people
No,
to
you
my
can
page.
point-
But you could go to my page or her page.
Yeah, yeah.
And messages,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then when we get the Woodland, we'll make a story, and we'll make a
Yeah,
hey,
shout
Woodland
them,
page.
shout them both
Please
out.
follow us.
Shout them
let's
both
do
out.
that.
What's your Instagram handle?
Mine is Ringo Star, like
I
my
don't
last name.
actually know mine. That's terrible. But we do have a Facebook, which I think is Woodland the band.
Okay.
So I should know my handle. I'm not a big social media
That's
person.
okay. That's
It's
okay.
weird
Whenever
to see.
whenever it goes live, send it to us, and
Okay.
we'll add it in on
Cool.
everything.
And
Awesome.
wherever you're listening to this, it'll be in the description. So just scroll down wherever you're
Go
at,
follow
and click
them.
on it.
We'll create it
And
tonight.
be there.
It'll have one post.
It'll be there. Cool. Okay. Well, again, thank you, Jason and Melissa, for being with us.
Thank
And
you.
without any further ado, here is Road of Lies by Woodland.
I drove you home, you fell asleep. I did too. I was in the other lane for a minute or two. You never knew, you didn't trust me anyway. You never told me what was on your mind. So now if you could ride those pitch black roads again, would you drift away some Or would you find the strength you had to hold me way back then, so we both could go on and put our faith in that road of life? You made me feel like I was alive, just for you, no hands on the wheel the whole night through. It wasn't true, you didn't trust me anyway. You never showed me what was on your mind. So now if you could ride those pitch black roads again, would you drift away someplace behind closed eyes? Or would you find the strength you had to hold me way back then, so we both could go on and put our faith in that road? Years go by, memories hang on, and the pain gets very real. It's hard to believe that we drove so long that we had Chevrolet. Sometimes youth brings a daring game, and you forget about your own road sense. You drive away with nothing but the consequence. If you could ride those pitch black roads again, would you drift away someplace behind closed eyes? Or would you find the strength you had to hold me way back then, so we both could go on and put our faith in that road of life? That road of life.